Okay. Got it.
Okay. Recording.
Okay. Everything okay?
Yes.
So I'm assuming you can hear me. So we're going to be talking about ringing up and down and Peal. Some of you will be very good at it already. Others don't get too much practice because we are probably half our towers leave our bells up, and so we don't get to practice them down. But it's a worthwhile thing to practice anyway. Today, I've been spending a few days to try and get this up to scratch. Of course, it'll be, I hope this bit I couldn't do. But and then today in the post, the Ringing World arrived with a 3-page article about raising and lowering in Peal, or at least about in Devon, which we'll see a bit of Devon chord change ringing with raising and lowering in a minute. So going on to the why should we spend time practicing raising and lowering Peal? Well, first of all, for most people, it's the first noise we make when we get there. If the bells are left down, then the first noise that people out in the street hear is the bells being raised. So the options are we raise them 1 or 2 or 3 at a time in a jangle jangle, or if we can practice and get a really good raise, then they'll be impressed, and it's a good impression. So it's important. Similarly, I'll put 3 up as well. The lower at the end of the session, it's often it's your last ring before you go home or you go to church, and the people just going into church are just going to start the service. So it's good to have a good lower at the end as well. It's also acknowledged that raising and lowering by itself is good for bell handling, and raising and lowering Peal certainly encourages listening. It's the only way you're going to get it perfect is by listening. But it's only rounds. It's fast rounds, slow rounds, so it's not too difficult to pick your bell, and it's good practice for listening. If you want to do change ringing later, when it might be a bit more difficult to pick up your bell. Okay, and it's a challenge, totally separate to the challenges of change ringing. Some of us might be frustrated we can't get our plain hunting right, or a Bristol Maximus right, whatever. It's a totally different challenge to get the raising and lowering right, and if you do, it's great fun and very rewarding when it's done well. So I encourage people to raise and lower in Peal, and later on I'll also mention that perhaps we should practice a lot more formally than we do. I'm going to do a little bit about, so why not practice these things on a practice night? That's right, we never do, or perhaps some people do, but in my experience, you raise up the bells at the start if you need to, you have your practice, and then you lower them at the end. But very, very rarely do actually, in the middle of the practice, let's lower them and raise them again as practice. It's part of if it's a part of your Sunday performance, so perhaps we should do more of that. A bit more of that later on. Okay, so I won't spend too much time on actually raising a bell, because it's assumed, really we had to assume that most people, before you start to raise a bell in Peal, you're going to be pretty competent and confident at raising a single bell. But we'll have a couple of looks. This first thing is, I'll just run through a few important points about raising the bell for completeness, really. There is a very good clip here by the Association of Ringing Teachers about raising a bell. We'll just have a look at that in a minute. They start off saying, certainly you should always check the bell is down before you take coils. This is a suggestion of mine that you should make the first coil quite small, because when you let go of it, your hand, if you do it the neat way, which we'll see in a minute, your hand will be a little way up the rope, depending on the size of that coil. If you do it the less neat way, your hand will be right on the end of the rope anyway. So anyway, that's just a small suggestion. Make the first coil small. And certainly as you go up, it's very important to have long pulls. And so to affect that, you mustn't release a coil until it's tight on your fingers. Guide the sally once it starts to bob. But some people, particularly when they're learning, get hold of the Sally and pull the bell down again, really, because they do too big a check. It's if you get confident at catching it at just the right time, and give it a bit of a pull, you can help yourself get up. And this is the bit I want to show you on this raising clip, is how to release your last coil the opposite way. Most of the coils you just get rid of by, when the coil is tight on your fingers, you release the coil off the end of your fingers. But for the last one, it's better to let it out the back of your hand so that your hand stays up the rope. If you wait till it's right down, slipping off your fingers, it means you're going to be right on the end of the rope, which is usually too far down the rope. Let's just have a little look at that.
With MailChimp, you can design beautiful marketing assets in no time at all, thanks to MailChimp's AI-powered.
Okay, so we'll go to about a minute in. Here's the lady starting to raise a bell.
But to ring a bell up, the bell moves to a very small arc
coils
and starts to chime as the clapper hits the bell on one side. Gradually, the arc increases, and you'll see that the clapper begins to hit both sides of the bell. It's now doubling, and that happens about a third of the way up.
Notice she's beginning to pull the Sally, because she's not checking it. She's just getting a bit of a pull, not as much as you could.
Gradually, after that, the bell swings through a wider and wider arc until it's up.
Now she's down to one coil, and she's going to let the coil go in about 10 seconds. And she's going to go out the back of her hand this time.
And when it's up,
there
you'll
it goes.
See that the clapper
she let her coil go down the bottom.
The bell at each stroke just before the top.
Right. Did you see that? I've got me back. Where can I get the PowerPoint back?
I think you just Control Tab and you'll get the PowerPoint back. The YouTube video worked really well.
Oh, okay. That's not working right.
Yeah, select PowerPoint.
Oh, yeah. Down the bottom, PowerPoint. Oh, okay.
No, the one on the right. The red one.
Oh, that one. I'm sorry. Right.
And then on the right.
Okay. Whoops. Oops, no, don't want that. This one I want, isn't it?
Yeah, choose the one on the right.
Oh, okay. Right. Thank you for that. Okay, so that video works all right, did it? The YouTube?
Yeah, it was perfect. Yeah.
Could you hear me talking over the top of it?
We could.
Okay, that seems to be working right then. Okay, so so the main bit to get off that one, my sort of a problem with that particular YouTube clip is she's already an expert. So, well, I suppose really you're trying to learn from experts how to do it right. So that's fair enough. Yeah, the main point was how she let that coil go at the end. So we risk having another look. Let's do it. So that was after about 2:25 or something. Here she about 20 seconds. She's got
gradually after that, the bell swings through a wider and wider arc until it's up.
The last coil's getting smaller and smaller. She lets it tighten on her fingers, but instead of letting it go off the fingers, she lets it go out by lifting her thumb.
And when it's up, you'll see that the clapper connects with the bell at each stroke just before.
Let's see if I can get back to the right place. Oh, here we go. Good. All right, so that's raising a bell, which you certainly need to be good at before you look at raising a bell in Peal, which we'll go on to now. Oh, and there's another little important thing there. Don't attempt to set the bell until you've got rid of your last coil. Okay, on to raising in Peal. Firstly, everyone should be ringing off the same song sheet. That mainly talks about how the two main things that you need to get right are how to start, how the team is going to start, and what sort of speed you're going to go on the way up. There are two popular ways two common ways for the start. The Devon core change way, which is that all the bells come in at the same time in a very fast round on the third pull. The trick is to not sound any bells on the first two pulls, really. It works pretty well on small bells. And let's just have a little look at Warcampton. These are a load of experts just ringing a light 6. See what happens here.
Want to know how to reverse your swollen prostate for good?
Advert.
This changes everything we know about enlarged prostate.
Right, start straight away. There you go. Notice how quickly the trebles are up. The trebles already half, Sally's bobbing, the tenor's still not bobbing at all. Okay. So that's how they do it in Devon. Now that works really well when the rings are quite light. A few years ago, the Devon chord change ringers went to Westminster Abbey. Let's have a look what they did at Westminster Abbey in terms of raising, where the tenor's nearly 30 hundredweight. There's a bit of guff on the front. I'll get to the important bit. I got 3 on the tenor, look, 2 on the 9th.
Look out, Ben. Trouble's going. Gone.
And notice how the trebles are getting up really quick. Tenor's still only going a little way. Swing. Right, well that was quite exciting, wasn't it? So if you're doing it the Devon way on for their method, you've got to have a few heavy blokes on the back end of a heavy ring. No, we don't do it that way, of course. We tend to do it with a staggered approach, which has the big advantage that the trebles get out of the way of the tenors, because they're often a problem is that the tenors want to swing slow. The way we do it generally is a stagger a start and 1 bell rings at a time. Doesn't have to be 1, but usually 1. Certainly if there's only 6 bells, 1 extra bell comes in each time. And by the time the tenor comes in, the trebles are getting up towards a bit of a Sally Bob. So they're swinging nice and high, giving the tenors time to chime and to ring. Let's have a look at one of these.
This one.
Okay, they're all in there now. Tenors having a bit of trouble keeping up with it. Now they're beginning to space out. Second is trying to space out. Everyone else trying to space out behind them. Right. So I don't know if you heard me shouting over the top. Let's see what's the next point I making? Okay, what was the speed? Now you may have noticed in the 2 completed ones we looked at that actually they go up quite quickly, and that seems to work. The reason behind the Devon people is, of course, a lot of their ringing is done in competitions, and they don't want to make many faults. They've decided that, well, this is one argument I've heard. The most likely place to lose faults is in the raise. So let's get it over with quick. Let's get them up as quick as possible. Some people claim that it's possible to get a ring up in the number of pulls the same as the number of hundredweights of the tenor. Although that's probably overdoing it a bit, it's just possible. On time in those 2, on the one we saw, that got up in about twice the time, the weight of the tenor. But in fact, the staggered start we just looked at as well, which was Yardley in Birmingham, they got up pretty quickly. They were up in a minute. They didn't hang around down the bottom. So I think that's worth noting. The treble who's leading, we'll talk about leading up in a minute, don't hang around at the bottom. And this is a tip really for people who are ringing a bigger bell in Peal. You got to let the trebles get out of the way before you start swinging it too high. Otherwise, you'll get left behind. And that's one of the reasons why I think in all those we've seen, the trebles get going up quickly. But say if you're ringing one of those bigger bells, I know when I'm starting ringing a bigger bell to a raising Peal by the staggered start, I don't bother to pull anything at all for the first 2 or 3 pulls while the treble are coming in. If there's 6 or 8 bells going, give them space to make a noise and get up, and then you can get stuck straight into making the bell sound and go up. And now a little tip, if you are raising in Peal and you get a little bit out of step, and you know you're slightly out of step visually, even possibly orally as well, or by your ear as well, don't overcorrect. Just make a gentle nudge in the right direction. If you overcorrect, you'll find that you makes it worse than the other time. Don't overcorrect any time. Don't do anything too quick when you get out of step. What else should we look about? Oh yes, let's go on to the next one. Right, the conductor. So these points are mainly towards the person who's leading the way up, who's usually the treble. And at the start, the conductor should make clear the sort of start. So most people would say, well, I guess you're just determining between those 2 types. We'll all come in at the 3rd stroke, or we'll come in one at a time. There's not so much to say in the raising as this is more important on when we're lowering, that the conductor makes it quite clear what we're going to do. Okay, so using the staggered start, conductor gets the treble up fairly briskly, giving the tenors space to chime. And then once the tenors are striking, perhaps slow down a little bit, but try and go up at a regular pace. Maybe count a couple of notches on your rope each time. It's not a good idea to try and accommodate errant ringers. Let them get right, and if you start mucking about, it's making a moving target for them. So it's perhaps just best, you might just hold it steady a bit while they get right, but certainly don't start going down again or anything like that. Probably best just to keep going up at a steady speed. Now all the ringers should know that the bells, as you go up, they start at the bottom very close together. As you go up, they're going to have to space out to ring proper rounds. Now, an experienced band will do this without being told. The ringer on the 2nd is quite important to make the space, and then everyone else behind try and match it. Sometimes the conductor will need a bit of verbal encouragement just to suggest we space out a bit as we approach the top. But say in an ideal world, the ringers would ease out slightly naturally as they go, and with practice I'm sure you would. Right, so that's the end of raising the bells for the moment. Let me just let's see, I'll carry on then with lowering in Peal, but again I've got a few points about lowering a bell itself. because before lowering in Peal, of course, it's important that it's you're good at, competent and confident at lowering a single bell. There is an ART lowering clip. We might just watch. It's that same expert lady doing a neat lower. We might just have a look. So it takes a minute, I think.
These $60 Japanese smart patches are taking the world by storm. Just apply.
Okay.
Here we see a bell coming down. It starts off at normal speed.
She moves up the rope.
Gradually gets faster and faster.
She moves up the rope.
And somewhere just under halfway,
she moves up the rope. Now she makes a coil.
On one side of the bell.
And she moves up the rope, both hands together, very neat. That coil's getting quite big, so she makes a second one. Another coil. Now she stops with the Sally, stop bobbing. You can probably do that for her if you want to.
Continues until the bell is completely down and it's just being chimed with very little movement.
I think her last coil's too big. That's horrible. But she's on the Sally. And notice she's chiming. Right. Where do I get to? Down there, isn't it? Here we go. Okay, so notice at the end she was chiming, which is another art you have to master before you do any lowering in Peal. We'll see why in a minute. Okay, so making coils, that could be practiced on a rope without having to ring the bell. Just going up the rope, making a coil. Keep your hands together. That's the neat way. But say practice it before you actually do it. And when you've pulled the bell off and you're starting to go down, you should ring the Sally properly until you've made a coil. Possibly one-handedly, but make sure you definitely ring it. Otherwise, you'll find, especially before you've done too much practice, the bell's not down far enough and it'll set itself or worse. So you've got a coil before you stop. You hit pulling the Sally, and the final coil should include a bit of Sally. Well, in that chip, she included. I thought her final coil was too big. Really, it didn't look it. She was too neat. It wouldn't go around her neck. But I think she should have had an extra coil. But she finished up on the Sally, and she chimed effectively when the bell was down. The bell on the small bell, even a small bell, hardly has to move at all to be able to chime properly. So you can practice that with the, well, not without moving the bell, but at least without doing any damage. Okay, so that's assuming. So that's assuming everyone can lower. Now we're going to lower in Peal. I just put those there. Again, the conductor. Now this is more important perhaps for the lower than it is for the raise. The conductor should make sure that everyone's going to be doing the same thing, mainly at the start and particularly at the finish. Some people will go straight down. You just pull off and we go down. Generally speaking, and I think anyone in Sydney would do it, and I think all the clips I've got do it. You settle into good rounds, and then the conductor says go down or go reverse Uppingham or something, and everyone starts to lower. Right, so that's what I think we'll assume everyone's going to do that. At the end, there are two schools of thought again. The Devon people do it their way, which is they just ring round, they get the bells low, ringing good rounds, and they just say stop. And they don't pull the next one, then they let the bells swing down. And we might just have a look at the end of that. Well, that's at Walkhampton, isn't it? Yeah, so we'll have a look at their end.
Eligible New South Wales homeowners are getting paid to go solar. So
it's quite a long way in, about 7:20. We won't go through all their stuff. Right, anytime now it comes into a lower, it doesn't actually show the right beginning. That's their call. Here we go. They're lowering. They've already started. But it's more for the finish. I'll hustle along a bit. Yeah, that goes on a bit, doesn't it? Wait for it, he's going to stop. That's it. Just said stop, and they stopped. But most people, certainly in Sydney, would when everyone's got down into good rounds they'd lower to good rounds. Generally speaking, the conductor then shouts out 3 more miss, catching rounds or catching possibly queens. So that's exactly what happens. They say miss, and the conductor will count 1, 2, 3, and then miss, catching queens, or catching whatever. The chip I'm gonna the other people I've got lowering actually don't do this, so we're learning by their mistakes. They start off and she says go down, I think, but at the end she then starts talking about what queens is in the lower, which is very naughty. That should all been done before anyone got a hold of a rope at all. This clip is a little bit, has given me a bit of a problems. So bear with me, I might have to, we'll see how we go. We'll certainly start it off, it doesn't start till about 40.
Top 2, double going and gone.
When she says go, I'd like you to notice what happens first of all. The things that will happen first is that she gives up the treble, stops the hand stroke lead, and the tenors start coming in quite quickly. See if we can pick that up. Oh, not too bad. Let's see. So my only complaint there is she should have done that talking before she started about what they were going to catch in and what queens was. They actually did it a bit high as well. Notice because the bells were a little high before when she did the count, it meant that when they missed, there was a bit of jingle. Some of the bells weren't down low enough. I think the bells could have been a little bit lower before she'd done that. But anyway, that's just being a bit picky. Right. Oh, and this is a pet gripe of mine. They didn't do it there. I should have pointed out while we had the video up. Some people, you know, they stop their bell, or they made the noise correctly, but then the bell's still swinging and they stop it, and you get another ting tang after the end of the catch. That's very annoying. Just let the bell swing a bit. It'll stop itself in time. But once you've had the catch, either in rounds or queens, whatever, you don't want any extra noise. So don't touch the rope again once you've made that final catch. And same thing applies about if you do find yourself getting out, getting a little bit slower, a little bit quick. Don't overcorrect. Make a small adjustment in the right direction, and it may take more than one or two swings to get it right. Okay, now a few points for the conductor. We've talked about most of it already. Really, first job is to tell a band what's expected of them. Sorry, I got these words Warcampton and Hungerford up here all the time. They're just the links to the various YouTubes. Okay, so let the bells settle into good rounds before calling go down, or whatever you call. Initially, the hand stroke gap can be forgotten about. Of course, the Devon ringers don't have a hand stroke gap, so the tenors have to tuck themselves in a bit. I try to go up the same. If I'm leading down, I try to go up the same bit on the rope every time. You can feel your way up the rope, say 1 or 2 notches at a time. Let's see. Well, don't the leader shouldn't don't accommodate people who are going wrong, except possibly hold steady. But again, the moving target is just as hard. So I think you might hold steady or just keep going. And lowering is not so much a race. People tend to like to take their time about going down. Bells sound very nice going down. It's a bit easier than going up because gravity's doing most of the work, although you certainly is not doing all the work. You have to keep it in place. So you can take your time going down a bit. That's probably about all we need to know there. I think that's probably the last point, isn't it? Okay. All right. So that was the end of the bit about raise and learn for the moment. But this is just an encouragement to people to practice on practice nights. You can do on a small number of bells. Start off with 3s or 4s. I think it's better. Personally, I think it's better if the bells are close together. Like if you've got an 8-bell tower and you're on ring 4, ring 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, 6, 7, 8, or 2, 3, 4, 5. Ring the bells which are closer in weight. Ringing 1, 3, 5, 7 might sound all right, or 2, 4, 6, 8, but it makes it considerably hard, especially if you're practicing, if you're learning. You could muffle the bells for an early start, but don't want to do that too often because listening's so important a part of it to get it right. Once it looks you're getting nearly right, then you should have the bells open so you can hear them properly. Right, and that's just a list of references. I guess I've left that on there for in case this PowerPoint gets used anywhere else. I'll get out of here for the moment, see if you've got any questions, if you're still there. What happened? Right, are you still there? Well, some people are. Can you hear me?
Yep.
No. Oh, good.
Is there any questions, Phil?
Any questions?
Everyone's on mute, shaking their heads.
Okay, well, I hope you found some of the clips interesting. See other people doing it. They weren't perfect.
Could you share some of those links with me? And
yeah,
then
well,
I've
got them all there. How do you want me to share them? I say I've got them all listed out, but of course